She's in violation." The words hit like a gavel before the sound of steel followed. My niece's shoulder slammed against the back quarter panel of a police cruiser, metal groaning under the force, her gasp carrying down the cul-de-sac. The neighborhood froze. Karen Whittaker, president of our HOA board, didn't blink. She stood just beyond the yellow curb, red blazer cutting hard against the summer haze, sunglasses hiding eyes that thrived on control. Her manicured finger pointed at Ava's denim shorts like they were evidence from a crime scene. "Public indecency," she declared, and the officers obeyed as though her title carried more weight than the law they wore on their sleeves. Ava's voice cracked with confusion, not rebellion. She was 16. She didn't even understand why her body had been turned into an example, why her laughter a moment earlier with the neighbor's kid had turned into the click of handcuffs under the afternoon sun. I did. Karen had been itching for a spectacle, a demonstration of authority sharpened by months of petty fines, threatening letters, and notes taped to doors about community standards. Shorts were just her excuse. The block felt smaller under the glare of sirens and stares. Neighbors stood half-hidden behind porch rails, phones raised in trembling hands. Some filmed, others turned away, unwilling to let Karen's shadow spill onto their lawns. The scent of cut grass mixed with hot asphalt and fear. The cops shifted, uneasy, as if they too recognized the absurdity of what they were doing, but had already committed too far to back down. One officer checked his body cam with a subtle glance. I caught it. He knew. That was the sliver of control Karen had overlooked. Those cameras weren't just recording, they were broadcasting. Every shove, every accusation, every ounce of her venom was streaming live to the county's oversight servers. I knew because I helped design that very system before retiring from city contracts. Firmware that never blinked, never bent to favors, never stopped rolling until the battery died. My hand brushed the outline of the access fob in my pocket, the one detail she could never have guessed an old uncle might still carry. Karen smirked at me as Ava's head was forced down toward the cruiser door. "This community has rules," she said, but her words weren't meant for me. They were meant for the crowd, for the cameras she thought only she could weaponize. She basked in the silence of others, the same silence that had fueled her power for years. Flags removed, trees cut, swing sets dismantled, all under the banner of bylaws that no one dared question in public. But Ava wasn't just another neighbor's daughter. She was Rachel's child. My sister's child, Rachel, who had taken her last walk under the oak tree in our front yard, leaning on me when her body had already surrendered to cancer, whispering a promise I had etched into my marrow. Keep her safe. Don't let them break her spirit. That tree still bore Rachel's initials, carved into its bark decades earlier. Now Ava's reflection shimmered in the cruiser window, her face pale and small, cuffed like a criminal over a pair of shorts. The sound of the cuffs locking was louder than the patrol car's idle. It cut me open. Karen folded her arms, pearl bracelet glinting as if she'd just staged a coronation instead of a humiliation. The crowd murmured but stayed planted. A few whispered objections didn't rise beyond their throats. Fear had sculpted them into statues. I stood rooted, staring at the body cams. The oversight server was logging every second. Evidence she could never redact, spin, or bury under HOA stationery. It was mine to retrieve, mine to amplify, mine to turn into the blade that would cut her stage apart. Karen thrived on controlling narratives, but she had just created one she couldn't contain. As the cruiser pulled away, Ava's eyes found me through the tinted glass. Wide pleading but not broken. That mattered. That was the ember I couldn't let Karen smother. The neighbors turned back to their porches. Lawns reclaimed their quiet hum of sprinklers, but it wasn't silence anymore. It was tension coiled, whispers forming behind blinds, evidence of cracks beneath Karen's fortress. She walked back toward the HOA office at the development's edge, heels sharp against pavement. A converted model home, blinds always drawn, its interior a factory of threats and notices. The place pulsed like a command center. Karen paused at the doorway and glanced back, a smile tight across her face. She thought this was her victory lap. She couldn't see what was coming. The slow unravel of her empire by the very system she leaned on for power. I stayed where I was until the last echo of the siren disappeared. Then I turned, not to retreat but to plan. Rachel's oak tree waited at the end of my walk, shadow stretching across the yard like an anchor. I placed my palm against the bark, the initials rough under my skin, and let the promise settle again inside me. This wasn't just about shorts. It wasn't just about one arrest. This was about an entire neighborhood bent under the weight of one woman's reign. And tonight, in the silence of my house, I would log in, download the stream, and prepare to turn her theater into evidence. Karen had mistaken my quiet for surrender. She had mistaken Ava's youth for weakness. She had mistaken the cameras for her shield. She couldn't have been more wrong. Night draped the cul-de-sac in uneasy quiet, but my house glowed with the dim hum of screens. I hadn't touched my city-issued laptop in years, but tonight it sat open on the oak desk where Rachel once balanced bills. The login window pulsed like an invitation. My hand hovered, bones stiff with age, yet steady with purpose. Credentials older than half the officers patrolling our streets still carried weight here. One keystroke, another. The system cracked open like an old vault. Rows of encrypted feeds unspooled across my monitor, each frame stamped with time and location. I found them. 2 body cams, synchronized, recording every detail of Ava's arrest. Karen's finger jabbing at denim, Ava's breath hitching as the cuffs bit her wrists. My niece's dignity stripped in real time. I copied it all. Not just the clips, but the metadata. The chain of custody Karen couldn't rewrite. My thumb drive glowed faintly, a sliver of light in the dark office. I thought of Rachel again, how she'd always said the truth wasn't a hammer, but a mirror. Hold it up long enough, and the ones who hide will flinch at their own reflection. But this wasn't only about exposure. Karen had roots in every corner of this HOA. Fines, contracts, backroom deals dressed up as neighborhood improvements. A single clip might spark outrage, but a single fire could be smothered. I needed a storm. That meant digging deeper. I pulled up archived reports, things the public never saw. Infractions dismissed, tickets voided, noise complaints escalated into citations only after Karen's personal signature appeared. I traced patterns like veins under skin, each document feeding into the same conclusion. Karen wasn't enforcing rules, she was manufacturing them. And worse, she was profiting. Kickbacks from contractors, fines funneled into administrative funds, with no paper trail beyond her initials. I leaned back, screen light painting my face pale blue. The house was silent except for the faint hum of Rachel's oak outside the window, leaves brushing glass as if urging me on. I wasn't just building a case. I was building a reckoning. Still, evidence was only half the battle. Karen thrived on fear, on the silence of neighbors too tired or too scared to fight. Breaking her meant more than proving she was corrupt. It meant showing everyone she wasn't untouchable. That's when I decided on the town hall. Every month she staged her empire there. An HOA meeting dressed like a court hearing, complete with gavel and podium. She loved the theater of it. If Karen wanted an audience, I'd give her one she'd never forget. I pictured the moment, her standing smug at the podium, neighbors shifting nervously in folding chairs, ready to endure another sermon. And then the footage, projected large, unspinnable, undeniable, her power undone not by shouts or fists, but by her own cruelty replayed in front of the very people she controlled. My chest tightened. It wasn't just strategy. It was promise to Rachel, to Ava, to every neighbor who'd swallowed shame and fines just to keep their lawns trimmed and their peace intact. The plan was clear, but clarity didn't erase fear. What if Karen had allies deeper in the county? What if they scrubbed the evidence, turned me into the villain, painted Ava as a delinquent? What if this war hollowed out more than it saved? I pressed my palm against Rachel's carved initials on the oak desk drawer, grounding myself. Fear only has power when it silences you, and silence was Karen's greatest weapon. Not this time. By dawn, I had the files mirrored, backed up on 3 separate drives, and encrypted behind passwords only I would know. The evidence was alive now, impossible to bury, and with every copy, Karen's walls thinned. I shut the laptop, the oak desk creaking as if it shared the weight of the decision. Tomorrow the town hall would no longer be her stage. Tomorrow the mirror would rise, and Karen Whittaker, queen of cul-de-sac tyranny, would finally be forced to look at herself. The HOA hall smelled of fresh paint and control. Karen stood at the podium in her signature red blazer, pearls glinting beneath the fluorescence. Folding chairs creaked as neighbors shuffled in, heads bowed like schoolchildren. She tapped her gavel once, savoring the silence. "Order," she said, her voice carrying the smug rhythm of someone used to obedience. "Tonight's agenda." I stood before she could finish. The thumb drive felt heavy in my palm, not from weight but from truth. My heart pounded steady, not from fear but from knowing this was the moment. "Before the agenda," I said, plugging the drive into the projector's port. "The neighborhood deserves to see this." The screen lit up. Gasps spread like wildfire as the footage played. Ava's small frame slammed against steel. Karen's finger jabbing, her voice declaring public indecency over a teenager's shorts. Every shove, every sneer, every abuse of power magnified 10 feet tall. The hall was no longer quiet. Murmurs swelled into outrage. Phones rose, filming again, but this time aimed at Karen. Her smile faltered, pearls trembling at her throat. "Out of context!" She barked, but the metadata appeared on screen, irrefutable. Dates, timestamps, chain of custody. My years of survey work had taught me one truth. Evidence doesn't lie. "You find us for swing sets," a father shouted. "You cut down our trees," another neighbor added. "You arrested a child," someone whispered, loud enough to echo. Karen's gavel slammed, but the sound was drowned out by voices rising, united for the first time. She had ruled with silence. Now the silence was broken. A vote was called, not by Karen but by the very neighbors she had bullied into obedience. Hands shot up. One by one, then all at once. She was out, Karen's face drained. She clutched the podium, red blazer like a flag of defeat. For the first time, she had no audience left to command. I looked at Ava, sitting beside me, free. Her eyes wide, not with fear, but with pride. Rachel's promise echoed through her smile. "Keep her safe! Don't let them break her spirit." The gavel dropped from Karen's hand, clattering against the floor. It was over. The lesson was simple, carved as deep as any sinkhole. Power built on fear crumbles when truth is finally spoken. You can silence voices, you can bury warnings, but the ground, like the evidence, never lies. And tonight, the ground had spoken.